Today, we have a very important discussion for every Nigerian who earns, spends, or does business in this country. Joining us is Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. His committee has been at the forefront of designing and implementing the new tax laws that sparked conversations and, in some cases, concerns across the country. From questions about who pays tax, who is exempted, how the informal sector is affected, and even the role of content creators, celebrities, and Nigerians in diaspora, to worries about automatic deductions, tax refunds, and public accountabilities. This is a conversation that touches the pockets and the lives of millions of Nigerians. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, thank you so much for joining us. Let's dive into the conversation and clarify what Nigerians need to know about the new tax regime and much more. So you can join the conversation. I'm sure you want to call in. The number is 090-2416-3440 right there on your screen. You can also tweet or put your comment on our YouTube. We are streaming live. This matter, sir, I know that you've had to explain and explain and explain over and over again, but we'd like to start with the misconception. You know, there's this widespread misinformation and confusion about the new tax laws, how it's, and what I want to find out from you is, how is your office tackling this? You know, why do you think the public is anxious about the new tax laws implementation?
Thank you very much, and good morning to Nigerians. So I think you are right with the introduction there. So tax matters anywhere in the world has this way of evoking emotions,
anxiety.
because it impacts your pocket directly, and it's hard to pay money even in countries where everything works. So you can then imagine in a country where you finish paying the taxes, you also fix the road, and you do so many other things. It can be harder. So it's understandable, and that's why someone like me never take it personal, because I think if you leave the issues and you start focusing on people and attacking them, it just complicates the issues for them. Misinformation has been the biggest issues we've had to deal with, and a lot of that is coming from maybe the group that is least expected, including the elites. And the reason, you know, the way we put it together is some of them benefit from the status quo. And therefore, they rather we keep the status quo, even though if it's not working for the country. There also the issue generally that the level of tax knowledge and awareness in Nigeria is extremely low. So somebody goes online and say no to this tax reform, they want to tax poor people, and they haven't found out those poor people are currently paying a certain amount of tax, maybe 1,000. The new law says don't pay anything, and then you are fighting it. Some people say, oh, how about accountability? I say, yeah, we all care about accountability, including me. But if I was paying 5,000 naira before, and I'm not sure about accountability, and they say don't pay, why should I fight it? So the system we run in Nigeria for the tax system is not working for us. It's taxing our poorest people. In fact, the old law we had before January 1st was such that the old minimum wage of 360,000 naira was the amount on which you don't pay tax. And then there's even what they call a minimum tax, that even low-income earners must still pay a certain percentage of their salary as taxes, as well as small businesses. You know, everybody told us from international community, local experts, your money is in the informal sector. We ended up inventing more than 60 different taxes. Those people move and their taxes all the way. They're just trying to feed their families. So we said, you know what, take a step back. No country has become rich by taxing poverty. It's a contradiction. So why don't we just allow these people breed? When the tax amnesty was launched in 2017, it was called VADES. The vice president at the time was acting as the president, and he said that about 96% of income tax collected in Nigeria is coming from low-income earners. People that were paying 10 million to 20 million naira tax in Nigeria were less than 1,000.
I remember.
How do you reconcile that? That's what you should get from Banana Island alone. So, and then it's so convenient for us to take a step back, analyze, blame, and crucify everybody in public service and say Nigeria is not working. it won't work until you fix the system. So this tax reform was to look at it comprehensively. We said, we can't be patching this thing anymore. So we took that, effort, working with stakeholders. My committee at some point had over 100 people, all walks of life, all regions of Nigeria. So we worked with a lot of data, came up with the tax reform. It was very controversial, So we navigated all of that, and the laws were enacted. It was time for gazetting. The process for gazetting was complicated.
Yeah.
And I kept saying that as a country, we have to move away from just being transactional. We're very dramatic. When we see smoke, don't fight the smoke. Look for the fire. Look for the fire.
Oh, so true.
Somebody wrote a book recently about the former president, late President Buhari, and said that there were people forging the signature of the president. You know what? We just laughed and moved on.
But that is a big deal.
A senior advocate of Nigeria told me there are 3 versions of the Constitution.
Wow.
So when it's the tax reform, the excitement is understandable because many people just don't like the idea of tax reform, even though it will reduce their tax burden. But what I've been saying is, how about we use this crisis as an opportunity to fix a system so that next time that we find any law come out, we can all go to bank and say this was in line with due process. We haven't done that. Some people have been calling names, they fought the tax reform, and I say, well, at the end of the day, if you ask me personally, I'll say the substance of that tax law, has it been tampered with? The answer is no. Should it have been altered by anyone? No. Why don't you walk through that process, address it, including consequence management?
Yeah.
When I was doing the research, I found something like this happened in 1980, 1981, and it was to do with money bill. And this was something to do with House of Representative Finance Committee and the Senate Finance Committee. So they did something that the entire House had not agreed to. And it became a dispute all the way to Supreme Court.
Wow.
And this was very complicated because when they now said it was invalid, they had to default back to an old law. But under the old law, it was sharing Nigeria money. We had, I think, 12 states, but under the new system, we had 19 states. So it was a question of, do you ask the state to refund the money that they had collected? So it was difficult to manage. And that's why my view has been that find those sections that were altered, and those are the invalid sections of the law.
Okay.
And then find a way to deal with it, and then let us move forward as a country. Right.
When you were talking earlier about, tax, now you're saying that the poor will not be taxed, and Nigerians are fighting that. What exactly is the government taxing? Is it income, revenue, profit, or something else?
Investment.
In the most layman language.
Yes.
Please explain to us.
So government taxes income. So there's a section 24 of the Constitution that says every citizen must declare their income honestly and pay their taxes to the appropriate and lawful authority promptly. So income is the main focus of what government will tax you on. There are instances where government will tax you on assets, like you own a property and they will say pay land use charge. That's not income, that's an asset, right? But that's not common. So the biggest one is on income. Now, when it comes to income, there's a distinction between the income of an individual and the income of a business. If you're an employee, you are taxed based on your salary and emoluments. They pay you allowances, everything they give you from work. It's your income on which you pay tax. You are entitled to certain reliefs and deductions. For example, pension contribution is deductible, National Housing Fund, National Health Insurance. Yeah, so you take all of those out, and then there's also a relief for rent. Whatever is left, you go to the tax table. This is another area where people completely misunderstand. The tax table has bands of income and rates. So if you earn 5 million, you don't go to the line where there's 5 million, apply the rate to the entire salary. Everybody, even if you earn 1 billion naira a month, you start from the lowest band and apply the rate progressively. So what that means is the rate you see in the tax table is not the rate that applies to you, because there's a calculation to how that is done. So that's the reason why we develop a tax calculator and we put it on the website. So for that income of an individual, what this new law has now done is to say, let's exempt the lowest income earners, and they're about 1/3 of the working population, private and public sector combined. People don't realize that there are so many Nigerians, millions, who don't earn 100,000 naira a month. We're so disconnected from the reality of our society. People will say, hey, how much is that? It's not just 1 million naira. People can't find that. So those people are completely exempted. People who earn more than that, up to about 2 million a month, will see a drop in their PAY. And then people who earn more will see incremental amounts they have to pay more. What is more fundamental is that, and this is something that Nigerians don't understand. I've spoken to even some high net worth individuals who also don't understand it. When you run a business, whether you run it as sole entrepreneur or sole proprietor, or there's no name for the business, the amount of money you earn is not the income that the government will tax.
Okay.
That amount that you earn is called your turnover. You are entitled to make deductions for expenses that you incur to generate that amount. So, for example, anybody who is earning a salary about 1 million, 1.2 million naira a year will not pay tax. If you are running a business, that amount, we have a presumptive tax regulation that we're finalizing now, is 12 million. Okay. So which means you're a vulcanizer, you're a tailor, you're a hairdresser.
Artisans in bracket? Artisans.
Majority of them, 90% of them will not pay any tax because they're just trying to survive. So the high net worth individuals I spoke to, and this might benefit your audience, are people who own properties and they earn rent. They did not even realize that if you earn rent, you don't just go and pay tax on the rent. You take out the cost of maintaining the property, insurance of the property. In fact, the cost of building the property is tax deductible. So, which means if you all just, you prorate it over time, there's a life of about 10 years. So if you just understand the law, you see that the law is fair to us in terms of paying taxes. It's not there to punish anyone. And when people say, no, they don't want the reform, no is not neutral. When they say no to the reform, they're saying yes to the status quo, which is killing everybody.
Okay, I'd like to ask, in response to misinformation, you've mentioned about twice now that you had trainings of content creators on this reform and some individuals from all walks of life. I'm particular about the content creators side because we know some very popular content creators and we know some not too popular. So how was this selection made? What were the criteria for selection? And how can citizens now trust their credibility?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, actually. So we actually didn't set out to train content creators. So when we were working on the reforms, we had over 40 sectors that we engaged with. At that time, it hadn't been so controversial, so the turnout was not thousands. Many people were not even interested. So after the laws were enacted, we saw people were writing. Many of them were content creators that have no qualification in finance or tax or accounting, no experience, and they were creating content. And the bulk of it, more than 90%, was wrong. So we thought these are people who want to help, and they just didn't have the right knowledge. So we said, how about we train them, because why should we crucify someone who was just trying to help? So we then asked people to say, please nominate the content creator that has been trying to educate you on the tax reform that you'd like us to train. So it was actually people that nominated. We got nomination from over 9,000 people.
Wow.
So we wanted it to be a small room, the most impactful content creators. So we selected the top 20. We then published to say, people nominated you to say they would like you to train them on tax reform. Can you come? So we also train you first. One of them went, no, they want to bribe us. I will not go. They want to. So when I read this, people forwarded it to me. I was just laughing. So some people said, why are we not on the top 20? I like one guy from the north, actually. The guy said, well, I respect everybody on the list, but I should be there as well. When I looked up the guy, he has more than 4 million followers on Instagram. More than many of the people that were arrogant on the list. So I said, you know what? why should we decline? We said, okay, we're going to extend it to 50. But this time around, instead of asking people to nominate, if you're a content creator, self-nominate. We got 5,000 plus.
Wow, that's huge.
So eventually, to cut the long story short, we train close to 1,000 now.
Wow.
And we said to those people, we are not asking you to go and sell the tax reform.
Just
We are not asking you to go and promote it. We are saying, if you have the knowledge, exactly, should you want to enlighten, don't misinform. That was the whole idea.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great.
So, will I be paying the same taxes as a foreigner in Nigeria? Whether foreigner just living in Nigeria with their spouse and they work or they run a business? And then what are the benefits to me as a Nigerian over a foreigner in terms of this taxes? Yeah,
I like that, your question. So we try not to discriminate because we want our country to be home to anyone and everyone who wants to do the right thing. Because the same way that our citizens go abroad and we celebrate them, why should we crucify people for coming to live in Nigeria? So you hardly find any distinction between a foreigner in Nigeria and a Nigerian in Nigeria, except, something like pension. So if you are a Nigerian and you contribute to the Pension Reform Act, that contribution is tax-free.
Okay.
But if you're a foreigner here and you collect your salary and you send it to your country to go and contribute to your pension, we cannot give you tax deduction for that because you did not save the money here and it's not benefiting us. Right. Other than that, you won't find any distinction between a foreigner. For us, it's about anybody who makes Nigeria home. If you find it a country that works for them. If they want to do a business, it shouldn't come in their way of doing business. As individuals, they should be able to prosper because tax at the end of the day is how government shares in your prosperity. If you're unemployed, we can't collect income tax from you. If you don't have money to buy goods and services, you can't pay government VAT. So this is the underlying principle behind this reform. And to your question, if you are a small business owner, for example, and this is one of the things I'm happy that was corrected in the version of the law gazetted by the National Assembly. Small businesses is 100 million, and that's what we've been saying. The first gazette had 50 million in one, 100 million in one, but we know that the lawmakers passed 100, so I've been saying 100. Because, yeah, your 100 is not, I said, 100 million turnover a year or less. As a company, you pay 0 corporate income tax. You don't need to charge VAT, no withholding tax, as well as most of your staff will not pay income tax. So we want you to grow. Now, one other very good news is that as part of this process, we identified that some of the problems are coming from the constitution itself around multiple taxation. Some of it is coming from local government and states. So we then develop a model law for harmonization for states to adopt. And the speed of adoption keeps me very excited. Okay. So states are now beginning to enact those laws to say, you can't just go on the streets and be collecting money from people, no more cash collection, you can't be, inventing taxes as we go along, So radio that progress is something that, radio levy, produce tax, bicycle levy, even wheelbarrow tax, we collect in Nigeria, So those things, I can't wait for them to be behind us so that we run the economy like a decent society where we protect our most vulnerable and we allow businesses and individuals to grow so that way all of us can have a country we can be proud of.
Okay, I have a question that affects us, the ladies on the show. Quote celebrity, quote content creators, quote people assume, because I've gotten assumption that, Tokwe is always traveling. You should pay 3 million naira as tax. I say, how much am I reading in a year? But we have a category of people, sports personnel, celebrities, content creators, many Nigerians who seem to live the life. And there's a tax evaluation of their Instagram, TikTok and Twitter to say, we have analyzed you. This is what you should pay. And to a large extent, it is, for me, unfair. How do we protect these people? And I don't even think I should lump sports with content creators, because for
Fake
sports
it till you
people,
make
they
it.
actually make money, but a lot of content creators are faking it till they make it. Like they are dressing glamorous, they are not in the plane, they are actually taking picture. They are dressing according to their miracle, you know, and yet they are being taxed according to the miracle that has not happened yet. So how does this new tax the reform affect them, and how does it protect them from being
Can
exploited?
I add to your question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume I have saved 10 million in one of my accounts, but I have several other accounts, and for whatever reason, I decide to receive and share that 10 million to other accounts, because now we are linking up NIN and BVN. Is there a tracing that shows real standard of earning and, you know, the real source of money before taxing? Or do they just go ahead and tax based on what is available, or this money has landed here, tax it, tax it, tax it? How do they
Okay, so first and foremost, nobody will tax you based on the money on your in your bank account.
Okay.
If you have 10 billion, nobody will tax you because there's 10 billion in your bank account.
But if 10 billion
Okay.
enter,
Even if 10 billion enters, you know, nobody will tax you because 10 billion entered. So the process is that at the end of the year, so for 2025 now that just ended, by the end of March this year, 31st of March, everyone, if you are in employment, your employer would have reported certain things, then you go and fill the remaining form. If you are not and you're self-employed, you should fill the form and submit it, which means whether you're a content creator, whether you're an influencer, whether you are selling crypto, you say during the year 2025, I did not make money. You put it there, right?
Okay.
I made money was only 1,000 naira. It was only 1 million. So you tell government, we call it self-assessment. But just imagine in the world that whatever you tell the taxman, they take it to the bank. There will be many countries that would have been bankrupt by now.
Yes.
Because I'll just say I
People
did
will
not make
lie.
money.
Yeah.
So government also has the right
The duty to fact
to
check.
exactly to try and fact check, and that goes to the point. So if you're trying to fake it until you make it, it has the downside. If you go online, you say first class to London, right?
Now we are
Somebody is
calculating.
trying to calculate the flight tickets, and it's about 10 million. And they see that you did not file returns. Don't think they will write it to you now, because it was you that said you flew to London first class. You can now explain to them that it was fake news, show them the passport that you didn't travel that day. Now, it takes effort for you to now prove that you were lying to people, right?
To yourself
The taxman
first.
and to yourself. The taxman is not interested in morality. But if you put out a statement, it's a strong evidence against you until you prove otherwise.
Wow.
Now, this new law is actually more attractive to influencers and content creators and cryptos than before. Okay. By the way, the linking of bank account to NIN and BVN started in 2020. Yeah, so it's not new. So what some people are saying, oh, the taxman said they can collect this amount of data if this money is in your bank account. They did not realize that
they have it before.
It has always been there.
That was
No
done in
threshold.
2021.
Yeah, they can even ask the bank to give you information, give them information about you with 1 naira in the account. So that power has always been there and is still there. You can't limit the powers of the taxman to find information about taxpayers. You won't have a society. The same way that the taxman should not go overboard and just have unlimited powers. So you need to balance it. So for influence, let me start with cryptos. People who earn money from virtual assets, under the old law, they were taxed on gains alone and their losses were disregarded. This new law says that's not fair. It's not a crime to invest in virtual asset now. So your gains net your losses before you pay tax. That's a big advantage.
Yeah.
If you're an influencer, again, good information. This was one of the things we shared with the content creators when we trained them. You are running a business. So when you dress up, looking good is part of earning your money.
Yeah.
When you pay to promote a post, that's cost of running the business. You pay someone to help you run errand, you bought a camera. Camera is an asset, you claim capital allowance on it. So just having that knowledge and keeping record, and it's not complicated records that you need to keep.
Capital
Would
allowance
help
on
you.
camera.
Yes, on the camera. Even when you buy
Alaja just
airtime.
bought.
Yes, when you buy
airtime.
data, data and airtime, that's cost of doing business. You should deduct it.
Yeah.
So you find that by the time you deduct everything, what is left is small. And if you are below the exemption threshold, no tax.
Exempted.
We pray for you to make millions of dollars. When you get to that point,
We'll
you pay
collect
the
your
tax.
money.
Exactly.
So are there free classes for bookkeeping? Because just as you
We've been
mentioned now,
running classes. We even did one for professionals. We wanted to train 3,000 professionals across
should be
Nigeria.
running as Googles on
11,000
TV.
applied.
Okay.
11,000.
No.
So, we've been talking Nigerians, and we Nigerians, we're everywhere in the world. So how does this new reform now affect people living in diaspora?
Yeah.
Are they liable to pay tax? They'll pay where they are making their money, where they are earning, and then come back to Nigeria to pay. How does it affect them?
Thank you for asking. So
Because most of them have accounts here.
Yes.
so
And they used to send money to their parents.
Yes. So let me tell you. So under the old law, it says you are taxable in Nigeria based on your income in and outside Nigeria. For a business, it says you are taxable on income derived, accrued in, brought in, received in Nigeria. That was what we have in the old law. We said this is just too open-ended. In the new law, we've cut all of that out.
Okay.
You are now taxable on income that is derived or accrued in Nigeria, which means you have to be doing the business in Nigeria.
Okay.
If you are an individual who is not doing business, you have to be resident in Nigeria. So we've only just even provided more clarity and safety for our people who live abroad. So any money you earn abroad and you send to Nigeria has zero tax. But if you live abroad and you also have a side hustle in Nigeria, you are running a business by the side, or you have a property on which you earn rent in Nigeria, of course, you pay tax, you pay tax like anybody else. So, but you're not paying tax because you are a Nigerian in the diaspora. You pay tax because you earn income in Nigeria.
Within
The
the
same thing
country.
with pensioners are not liable to tax on their pension income or retirement benefits or severance payments. So in fact, we had to compile like 50 benefits, allowances, and relief available to
Let me talk about this one that Nigerians are having this hula baloo about, and it's about accountability. Now, some Nigerians online are accusing the government of using tax funds, tax money people, to fund extravagant lifestyle, to fund Owambe, to send people to India abroad. Just go and come back. Just go. Show nibi to fe shere lo ni ani ko lo se. So now, Nigerians are asking that how do you respond to this perception of using taxpayers' money to fund lifestyle of public officers? Who will hold them?
Excellent question. You know that me as a Nigerian, I'm also concerned about that. Because the only way our society can work is for every naira that we contribute in taxes or that we earn from other sources to count for the people. But you see, we will not solve that problem by screaming on top of our voices that there's corruption, right? We solve that problem by taking practical steps. Part of the work of my committee, even though you can't put in the tax law on how they spend the money, that's not how tax laws are drafted. We identified this as an issue. So we focus on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, as well as the Constitution itself. So we developed what we call a National Fiscal Policy Framework that's supposed to guide government on how they spend their money. So don't go and build an airport when there are no primary schools, right? Don't go and build a golf course when you don't have clean water. So those kind of simple things. Yes. So we sent a bill to the National Assembly to even amend the Constitution to make this transparency a structural thing. Let me give you one very important example. Today, you will struggle to find any local government where they have their plans, their budget, and their audited accounts online that you can see. And this is the beginning of transparency. If I don't even know, and I give an example of other countries, even in Africa, where you can find details of what they're doing online. Can we just even start doing the basic things so that when somebody says just go abroad because they like you, instead of them providing a exercise book for kids in school, somebody would then ask them, this amount of money. There was one governor that people were making fun online about funding a trip to heaven rather than the one on earth. And I don't want to, because now I know on my job that you don't take anything to the bank because people can cook up anything. So, but the point is still that the priority of spending, the quality of spending, and how we hold ourselves to account is important. And that accountability will not work until people understand properly so that they're asking the right questions, not the wrong questions. So for us, we think solving the problem around corruption and accountability is something that has to be done structurally by moving things around the laws, around the constitution, and how we spend our money and how we audit and explain them.
Okay, so I had asked earlier about small businesses and how they calculate and you mentioned that like keep a book. I said okay, it should be like a jingle running on these things for the general public. So how does a small business owner know exactly what they owe, and what mechanisms are there for self-assessment or any of these assessments? Because if a tax man assesses my tax and says, Auntie, I owe 1.1 million, and I'm like, she mori 1.1 million in 2025. Well, how do I query what he has, reached? How do I go about, not protest, objecting what he has reached? Is there
Yeah. So the reality is that many of our citizens, they cannot keep record to save their lives. And you need to recognize that.
Yeah.
So we have what we call a presumptive tax regime, where you just recognize that they can't keep records. So somebody is a cobbler, they are a vulcanizer, they are roasting corn by the roadside. They don't need to keep any record, and they don't need to pay tax.
Lawyers don't keep too.
Yeah, but when it gets to the level of you're a lawyer and you're not keeping record, now we know that you have the capacity, but you don't want to.
You don't have the time.
Exactly. No, I don't think it's about time. You're just not
don't want to.
prioritizing it.
We
You
know how
don't
to
want
write,
to.
don't know how to
So
calculate.
that one, you cannot benefit from the system by failing to do what you have the capacity to
do.
Right. So the new law had now segmented society. People who have no ability to keep records, and then not so much, not more than like 12 million revenue a year, just leave them alone. People above that, you now do presumptive to say, well, based on what you sell, where you sell it, the other people we know, we think that you made this amount. So based on that, pay this amount. And you still have to come back and say you don't agree, and you give the reason. Then people above that, at this level of lawyers, accountants, and big companies, you must keep record. If you don't, the taxman would intentionally overstate your liability. Because otherwise you benefit from doing the wrong thing. Yes. So that you learn how to keep simple records. So people talk about narration, for example. The taxman, narration does not save you money. Narration is not the reason why you be taxed or not taxed. But narration helps you to remember. So that when you want to explain, you don't say 4 million to Emeka, and you can't remember who is Emeka.
What did Emeka do for you?
Exactly, but if you say money for diesel, anytime you bring your bank statement, you remember that you bought diesel or you bought a phone. So it helps you, not the taxman. And if you decide to now say everything is a gift, everything is a hospital bill, you just complicate, everything is now reimbursement, you complicate your explanation to the taxman because it will be so obvious.
Are you giving us expo? Because they will not tax cost now. Leave it as a cost.
No, but
So
like
if you put that as a
Factual.
exactly.
Yes.
So you can't just say there's 5 million and it's a cost. They say cost of what? Who did you pay? Because if it's cost, you need to pay someone.
Somebody.
So we need to find out who you paid.
and there's a receipt for it.
And that person you paid, what is your cost is their revenue. So the system will validate both. When your stories are not consistent, the system will flag it.
Prison.
I need to take this call. Okay, welcome to the
When
show.
your
Good
stories are
morning.
not consistent, by prison.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Oyedele.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Come on.
Welcome to the show,
My
sir.
question, I have two questions for Mr. Oyedele.
Okay.
My question is, number one, how would the tax reform take care of those people who collect tickets, who give tickets to this driver, Okada, Marwa, Wheelbarrow, those women that sell pure water, drinks in the market, my trade, and others? How would the tax reform take care of those people? These are common people in the society. That's number one. Number two is the companies, particularly, I'm sorry to mention, these Asia people, the Chinese, the Indians, and others, they are fond of evading tax. I once worked in a company where they evade tax. They are the Indians. Until when the union dictated it, without petition, the Lagos state government there. Three, when they come, when the tax reform people will come and ask for tax, the way the management will take them to the office, give them brown envelope, and that is all. We don't hear anything again. How is the tax reform going to take care of all these things? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great questions. The first one is about pure water seller, the person who
very
is
low,
hustling, and then
medium.
we'll give them tickets here and there. So that's what the new reform is trying to fix. First, to say you cannot physically create a barrier to collect taxes. You cannot collect taxes in cash, right? Because if you take out the incentive of why they're there on the road harassing people, then they will not be there anymore. So they collect so much from the people, but very little gets to the government. That's because the bulk of it is lost in transit. So this new reform is trying to address that. So once we have this adopted by all the states, so this will be a thing of the past. You're selling pure water, nobody will disturb you because you don't make 12 million a year in turnover. So to the other question about, I don't like to always generalize and say some people from Asia are not paying taxes. I can tell you from data. There are Nigerians who are not paying taxes. There are foreigners who are not paying taxes. So let's focus on the issue. Some people are evading taxes. One of the things this reform is trying to address is, fairness and equity. If you're paying your taxes and I'm not paying mine, I'm not being fair to you and the system is not being fair to you. So, and you may not even be able to compete with me anymore because I have extra money to underprice you, right? So this system is saying, what if we establish who shouldn't pay tax and exempt them? And everyone else who needs to pay, we ensure that they pay and nobody should be above the law. That's one of the reasons why you see some class of stakeholders are fighting this reform. Is because they've been benefiting from all these tax evasion and they collude with tax officers. When people show up for audits, they pay a bribe. Some of them have tax consultants that help them to facilitate that. You see this reform is trying to address the taxpayer being honest, tax officer being honest, and the tax consultant being held to account. All of that is in the new law.
Wow.
So that once we get to that point where everyone is equal, there's fairness and equity, then maybe we can then say, you know what?
I have some questions.
This £1 that I just paid must work for us.
Or TV. I will ask it off air. Let me take Tanwa's call.
Okay.
Welcome to the show. Good morning. Hello. Please don't listen to your TV.
Maybe as in
Okay,
So,
you had the question.
I wanted clarity on what you just said before I ask my question. In the sense that what you're trying to say is that these market women moving forward, if someone keeps harassing them because we know Nigeria,
Wheelbarrow
pushers, where can they now go? So can they say no? I'm not giving you this money because the tax law says this, and then where can they go? No, I'm just trying to say.
Fantastic.
Yeah, where can they now go and report because they need to?
Yeah, we talked about that. For some reason, I've been involved in trying to help with this tax system for over a decade, even when I was in the private sector. In 2013, we worked with manufacturers to try and address this problem. It didn't work. So some of the learning we moved forward to this new reform is the reason why we created the Office of the Tax Ombudsman for the first time in Nigeria. So what that means is that helpless man and helpless woman has help now. And whatever you do, the tax ombudsman cannot charge you even £1, including they can take cases to court on your behalf. They can override issue of processes in your favor. What we are saying to small businesses and informal sector is, let's say you have a association of pepper sellers. You don't expect all of them to know how to even escalate. By the way, we're saying it should just be as easy as toll-free line, call center, speak your language. You don't need to write. But even at that, imagine the pepper sellers identify one or two, Mama Yinka, Oga Musa, and then we train those people so that when they have an issue, Oga Musa and Mama Yinka is their ombud. They call that person who then escalates. Within 24 hours, the issues are resolved. So these are processes that we believe will move us forward. We should see how we make them work rather than insisting that nothing can work and therefore we don't try.
So let me take my case question.
Phone call.
Okay, go on.
Yes, so sorry. I know everybody, there are lots of questions. But let's take this phone call.
I can imagine.
Welcome to the show. Good morning.
So let me ask my question now.
Okay.
So, because I'm sure so many people want to Anyways, when I was living in the abroad, if I overpay my tax or something happens, it's a miscalculation. and I file for it, I'm given a tax refund, right? And then also, if for people, family members that used to visit me, when they shop, as they're leaving, they request for tax refund, and they get it. So how does this particular tax reform now address tax refunds in Nigeria?
Excellent. So we also identify tax refund as a problem. I spent about 22 years in the private sector consulting for businesses, small and large. I got refund only once. So under the new system, the reason why the refund system didn't work is we paid money into government account, they shared it every month, leaving nothing behind. So under this new law, it says before you start sharing, as the taxman, are you owing taxpayers that you need to pay? You set that money aside because, to be honest, it's not government revenue. That's other people's money. So this process now says refund for VAT, for example, must be paid within 30 days, no questions asked. So this system has been created not only at the federal alone, also at state level, so that refunds will now happen like you experience it abroad. The only one that we have not been able to do is you buy things in Nigeria, you are leaving, you get refund at the border. We can't do that yet. Because the quality of data is not something that is very sound as of yet. But then the whole idea is, let's pay refund, because you can't build trust in the system when you never pay me back when I overpay, but you come around and you charge me penalty and you collect every time.
All right, so we have Hassan who has called in from Lekki. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Happy New Year.
Wish you the same.
Mr. Oyedele, thank you for the assignment given to you by federal government. But you need to do more, because we need to know our country better before coming up with any plan. We are not against paying taxes. What we are after is for government to make our tax paid show in infrastructural development in the country. Secondly, we need to see what is happening now. What are you doing about these tax officers? Because what I'm seeing about this new tax regime is much more like shifting the goalpost of corruption. Because the tax administrators, like Federal Inland Revenue, are going to be the agencies to administer these taxes. And secondly, you need to clarify more, because these pure water businesses are small-scale businesses. The people with wheelbarrows that they are collecting money manually from are small-scale businesses. The Okada riders are small-scale businesses. And this money comes in quantum when you put them together. What are you doing about them? And this is, you see, you have already spent a fear, a kind of fear down the spine of Nigerians, because the signal sent to Nigerians is that they will not be going to account of people and be taking money. You need to douse that tension first.
Thank you, Hassan. You've asked plenty of questions. One of the questions that is asked is, or was also sent online. Somebody is asking, please, is it true that the taxman can seize assets without court order or court ruling? Another question was in terms of payment. If money gets into your, can they freeze your account? Like, can the taxman freeze your account over non-payments, in addition to what Mr. Hassan asked?
Yeah, so let me start with those ones, because I've seen that everywhere. So that power has always been in the law. Right? So in fact, it does not require anything other than the head of the Internal Revenue Service or the FRS at the time. But before you get to that point, we call it distrain. Distrain is you seize the asset of a taxpayer. Before you get to that, there are stages involving the courts, including up to Supreme Court. So when a tax has been established and you refuse to pay, the taxman has the power under the old as well as the new law to substitute whatever belongs to you for the tax you are owing. Now, when that item is an immovable asset, even before they sell it, they need to go back to the courts. If it's a movable asset, they don't need to go back to the courts under the old law. Under the new law, this is one of the areas of dispute between the version of the House just gazetted and what was out before, was that once you've gone through the process of the court to establish the tax, you didn't need to go back before you sell it. So I said to people, I said, under the old law, when they had the power without going to court to sell movable assets, which one did they sell before? You know, the example I gave, because I struggled myself to even find any example, I found only two. One was actually NEPA at the time. NEPA was owing FRS because they deducted withholding tax and VAT, they didn't remit. Ooh. So I think at this point it was up like 3 or 6 billion. So FRS went to court, they won the case, they said NEPA paid. NEPA said, but we don't have the money again. So they took their property at Falomo, Awolowo Road. That property where FRS is now used to be NEPA office.
Wow.
So FRS took it over. Of course, you know the revenue is not for FRS. So FRS took it over, and then they can pay as part of their cost of collection the tax to government.
Okay.
But this tells you that it can work. But that process took years. So the other person that tried to do it was during Fowler at FRS. Yes.
Yeah.
They wrote to many banks and said, we saw turnover in bank account, they've not paid tax. Can you ask them to pay? And then they said, post no debits. They couldn't take the money from the bank account, but they created the nuisance so that people can show up and say, well, I want to register. I also disagree that that approach wasn't right. So what we've done now is to create safeguard so that you can't just do that anymore. You follow processes, but at the end of the day, if you refuse to pay your taxes, the taxman should be able to collect it from other means.
Court order. So
YK
has multiple questions on multiple taxes, and let me just quickly take them. So she says, how do they stop the ag bureaus collecting tax on the road, the local government collecting tax, and then state government, you know, will come and you pay to them, and then you pay to federal government? So what is the distinction between these taxes, and you know, how does this affect us?
One of the reasons why we have these many taxes is many of us, particularly the elites, for many years, they will say state and local government, they do feeding federation, they go to Abuja to go and collect handouts. We're condescending. Those were their monies. If you're a landlord and agents collect your rent for you, why should you be abusing the landlord? So that's number one. So we said to them they should be creative. So what they understood was, let's invent taxes. So they invented all manners of taxes. This reform says, let's walk a steps back. Instead of over 60 official taxes, we're saying keep it to a single digit across all levels of government combined. So that in itself gives clarity when you can remember the tax you need to pay and it's 1 or 2. Number 2, nobody goes on the street to collect taxes anymore.
In 2026.
No cash. It's in the law, of course. You know, implementation will take time.
2025.
And that's what the states are domesticating now. Ekiti started. Now we have, say, like Kano, we have Zamfara, we have Anambra, we have, I think even recently I saw Kwara, and there was Akwa Ibom. Lagos State, we had a session with Lagos State about 2 weeks ago. They're committed to it. FCT is under Mr. President. We're working that as well. So like this progress is so exciting for us that very soon you can see these are vulnerable people have this peace of mind that they can just live their life and their livelihood.
Who runs a business in Lagos, for instance, and then maybe she pays her taxes to Lagos, is it sufficient so that federal government will not come and say there's something that she owes them?
Yes, yes. So it's also the reason why we are harmonizing tax ID. So before, you could get your ID from Lagos Internal Revenue Service, get another one from FRS. Someone like me, because I now show up in Abuja, and now from Joint Tax Board. It's even confusing even myself. So under this new system, we're harmonizing. The system sees you as one person. The Constitution is very clear that we should not implement tax law in a way that makes you pay double taxation. So now that we're creating the infrastructure and the system to see you as one person, once you pay your tax that you should pay to either the state or local government or federal, nobody should collect it again from you.
That's synchronized already.
It's synchronized because now that evidence is open to everyone. What we see many times is you work and live in Lagos, but you are from, Ondo State, you want to go and buy land. Ondo State will say, come and pay before we give you TCC. Those things should be a thing of the past.
So now
we'll bring your documentation.
It's part of the harmonization we're doing for this reform.
Wow, wow, wow. It all sounds really, really good. We are awaiting the full implementation and all states adapting or adopting this new single tax system. I think it will serve Nigerians a whole lot more. And as we round up the show, I want to just remind all our viewers that he pays you. Like this tax reform pays you. It pays middle income and low income earners a whole lot more than the former system. Thank you so much for educating us with such detail. and giving us clarity and clearing up all the misinformation
Misconception,
that has been
misinformation.
out there.
Thank you for having me.
That's all we can take on today's show. Join us tomorrow for another interesting edition of Your View. Bye for now.